Hey, welcome back. Today I want to talk about Chemical Cut, which is a song I recently created and uploaded. It's a jungle, drum and bass, IDM kind of style track. I'm going to start with a quick overview, but if you want to skip ahead, check the description for the timestamps so you can jump to the section that you're interested in. I want to talk about how this song came together. Very much was a product of experimentation and having fun and letting just good ideas lead the way towards deciding where the song went rather than having a lot of preconceptions and trying to create that. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the tracks that comprise this song and some of the techniques that I employed, and maybe show you a little bit behind the scenes and see if maybe there's some techniques that other people out there might want to try out themselves. So to start off here on the fader view, you can see a couple of red tracks here. These are going to be drum tracks. We've got a couple of bass lines. We have a synthesizer, and these green tracks are going to be basically samples that I'm using as transition effects from one part of the song to another. So let's jump over to the rack view and we'll look at some of the instruments here. So starting off, we have two Dr. Octo Rex loop players. So for this song, I actually did not program the drums. Instead, I was editing loops using some drum and bass loops from the Jungle Warfare refill pack, which I've had in my computer basically since I started using Reason over 10 years ago. What I did was I really edited the slices and different parameters on the Dr. Octo Rex to create a lot of dynamic and really make the loop a little more unique and something my own. Scrolling over here to the bass section, you'll see I'm using a Subtractor. The Subtractor is doing a kind of dubstep, wub style kind of bass. This really started off with me just experimenting with that technique of sending the LFO to the filter, basically automating the speed of the LFO to create different wub kind of patterns. And then below that, we have a what is an emulation of the Roland TB303, and this is creating kind of a contrasting bass line. It's basically kind of these screaming acid techno kind of lines here. Moving on down the line, here we have in our synth section, we're using the Reason Rec extension called Layers, which basically has a bunch of old synthwave sounding presets and stuff. And then over here in the green section, I'm using two instances of Reason's new Mimic Creative Sampler, as well as the green sample manipulation. I think it's maybe a little easier if I open up a new file and show you how I actually automated these different parameters and what that did. Okay, so here we are in a new file, and I'm going to go ahead and open up another instance of the Dr. Octo Rex. And I'm going to go ahead and switch it from the default drum over to one of my drum and bass samples that I have. There we go. All right, cool. Let's actually speed that up. So that was 165.5 is the speed of the original sample. All right, so here's the original sample. So that's the original. I automated a few things. I automated the decay on this amp envelope. So I'm going to play the loop, and as I turn the decay down on the amp envelope, listen to what that does to the sample. So you can see it ends up making the loop sound very like staccato. What it's doing is as each slice of the loop is playing, as I turn down the decay, it's shortening the length of each one of those slices. So what I'm doing is I'm automating this knob and using this to really kind of control the dynamics. So I can start off really staccato sounding. And then when the song gets bigger, I can turn up the amp envelope. So what I basically did was I found where I wanted the decay to start at, which was, I think, around here. All right, cool. So I kind of set it to its initial position, and then I'm going to right click on the knob and where it says edit automation, I'm going to click on that. I'll go ahead and just draw in a blank lane. Let me switch to full screen here. All right, so again, here we have this amp envelope decay automation lane that we've created. Right now, it's just blank. Now you'll see it says open in edit mode 37. So 37, that is the same thing as, again, if I switch back to the rack view, that number corresponds with where this is on the fader. So I can start by, for example, I can start by putting drawing a little automation pen there at the beginning, and you see the value is 37, so that matches the default. And then let's say, for example, here at the third bar, we're going to make that go up. So the second dot, have it at 37, and then let's create another one. And that way it's gonna sharply cut up right at that line. So I don't know, we'll take this to say 70, for example. So now let's listen to the loop. Okay. And so if we watch this fader again, let's go back. And you can cool. So you can see that knob is automated and jumping up and down according to what I drew in over here. And then it was basically the same thing. So let's automate the LFO, the amount of the LFO. So right now the amount is set to 0, so it has no effect. If I turn this knob up, it's going all crazy. And what that's doing is, so you can see the destination is set to oscillator, which means that the LFO is affecting, in this case, the pitch. So it's making the pitch kind of go up and down the more I turn up the amount of it. So if I turn that amount down, you'll hear the effect, but it'll be more subtle. So let's do a quick automation on that LFO amount. So I'm just going to right click on the knob. I'm going to hit edit automation. And now on our sequencer view, we have a new LFO amount lane. So we'll just draw in another one. Let's say we start it at 0, and then in the middle of the lane, we will trigger the amount, and we'll have the amount be full. Actually, we're gonna save that for the very end. Let me click on these two guys, and then yeah, like the very end of the loop. So it'll sound like this. So I mean, that's just an example. And then again, you can also automate the destination. Right now it's going to the oscillator, but it could go to the filter, it could go to panning. So let's hear what happens if I switch that over to panning. So we'll play that loop again. And you can hear it was rapidly panning back and forth just now. You can also, for example, edit the filter. So if I bring down the frequency cutoff here, all right, so you can hear it's kind of muffled as I bring that down. Let's automate this. So we'll start it off at the top. I'm going to hit edit automation, and here's our new lane. Drawing an empty lane here. And it's going to start off doing nothing, and then here at the very end, it will, oh, actually, I think I'm doing this backwards because the filter, for it to do nothing, it needs to actually start at the top, because as we bring it down, that has the effect of filtering it. So all right, so let's do an automation like that. We'll kind of mimic that. So it starts off with the filter all the way open, and then here towards the end, we'll do a slope down, and then it'll slope right back up. So let's, and then, yeah, so let's hear that. Cool. And then what else could we automate? We can change the pitch of the loop. So we could, let's see, where can we, okay, so if we right click on the loop transpose button here, we'll hit edit automation. We got a new automation lane, we'll draw that in. The default, let's see. I think the default is, yeah, right there in the middle in this case. So when it gets to the middle of the loop, we're gonna pitch it down. And then when it gets to almost at the end, we're gonna, that's not what I wanted to do. We're gonna pitch it up. Maybe like that. All right, let's hear that effect. Let's move that over here. Cool. And if you want to see the automation on the knob, let me move myself over here. Cool. So as you can watch the filter here. And then also you can see the transpose, this little key right here is gonna move down. Cool. So those are just some quick automations that I've drawn in. Now, another thing that you can do with the loop is you can actually edit the individual slices. And there's a couple ways that you can go about that, but I'll show you the way that I prefer to do it. So what you can do is you can click on this button that says copy loop to track. And before you click on that button, you want to make sure that you set your left and right locators, because that's where it's gonna copy your track to. So I'm gonna move over here. All right, so back on my rack page, I'm gonna hit copy loop to track, jump back over to the sequencer, and now you see this new track that is created here. We're gonna expand that, okay. So what this is the individual slices of the loop. And so what you can do, again, sorry, we have this little effect where it's playing over itself. So after you copy the loop to track, you might want to click this button that says enable loop playback. You want to disable it, or else you'll have two instances of the loop playing. You have the loop player playing itself, and then you have this new track here in your sequencer that's playing on top of itself, and so you get that flamming kind of effect. So anyway, so again, what we have here is the slices of the loop. So like, for example, this first slice is gonna be a kick. There's a hi-hat, there's a snare. So what you can do, this is gonna be just the straight loop playing, but you can totally edit that. So let's say we wanted to discard that later half of the loop, and we're gonna shorten that and we'll duplicate it. And I'll join that to be just one track. This is just an example of how you can chop up a loop. I'm not doing anything specific here. And then we'll take that kick and we're gonna double it. So now if I do it, there you go. All right, so now you can begin to basically duplicate and create kind of glitchy effects. So if you do F8, you can open up a tools window here. And on the tools window, you can, under scale tempo, if you highlight some data, then you have the option to double that or half it. So if I hit double, it's gonna double the amount of notes that play within that time. So now it'll sound a little more glitchy. Yep, so I'm gonna add that back there. So let's find a later snare. That one. So let's double this guy. We're gonna do 6 of them. So that's 6, yeah. 6 of them, and we'll hit double and double again. And now it's really gonna have a little glitchy stutter. You can basically start going in and chopping up these loops and making them your own. And then if you combine that with automating other parameters of the loop, you can totally transform the original loop into something unique. Okay, so now we're back on Chemical Cut, and here's the Angel Rolla drum loop that I'm using. So here, let me expand this so you can see this a little easier. Okay, so again, here is the drum loop that I'm using. If you go into the slices, you can see where I've made edits to the original slices. And then you can also see these automated lanes. We have the amp envelope decay, LFO mount, LFO destination, and I've added some labels to these clips. So I didn't do a great job of organizing it, but it was good enough for me to be able to know what I was doing at the time. You can basically see, you know, this is my drum track, and then this is all the different parameter automations that are happening there. So let's listen to this track in solo for a moment, and you can get a sense of seeing those play out. And then it's essentially the same thing for the second drum loop, except I'm not so much, okay, it looks like I am editing the decay again on the amp envelope, but mostly what I'm editing here on the second loop is I have 4 different instances of the drum loop. Let's play that real quick. Let me find a section. We'll loop this section here. So you can hear that amp envelope decay being automated. It's opening up, and now it's going to close and get staccato again. And you see above, you have pattern select, and you got 1, 2, 3, 4. That corresponds over here. You have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if we watch this, you'll just see that it's switching automatically between these loops. So again, the way I edited that, let me jump over to my blank file and I'll show you that real quick. So back here on the empty track, right now I only have one loop that's loaded in. So these other ones are empty. So we're gonna load some files into there. So I'm just gonna grab more of these angel rollas and I'll add 2, 3, and 4. We're just dragging and dropping. What we'll do is we'll right click on one of these guys and we'll hit edit automation. And again, that takes us back to our sequencer view. And now we have a pattern select lane. So I'll draw an empty lane and then I'm gonna chop it into 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you'll notice right now they all say, I don't know if you can read this, but it says 1. So if I click on the second one here, and then I'll switch that to loop 2, click on the third one, I'll switch that to loop 3, click on the fourth one, switch that to loop 4, and now let's listen to our variation. I'm gonna mute these other automation tracks just so you can hear the difference here. And then I'm gonna wanna also mute this because we had copied the pattern to the sequencer here. So we're gonna mute that because in this instance, we actually want it to be playing from the loop player, not from the pattern that we have in the sequencer view. So I'm gonna enable the loop playback and let's hear that. Cool. So there's all kinds of things you can do with the Dr. Octo Rex. It's really cool. Even though I don't use it a ton, I just did in this case because it was fun and I was just looking for, I was just looking to keep things moving and be able to just, grab stuff and play with it. I didn't take it too terribly serious. And then at the same time, I think it turned out to be a pretty seriously cool track. So that's how you can automate the Dr. Octo Rex. Basically just pick your parameter, right click on it, and go ahead and edit the automation. And that goes for, that's not just Dr. Octo Rex, that's anything in Reason, but that's how I edited the slices in this particular song. So the Subtractor, the wub wub dubstep style synth. How did I do that? Well, let's jump over back to our empty track and let's recreate the effect that I did. All right, so I'm gonna delete the angel rolla drum loop that I had here. Bye. Okay, and let's pull in a subtractor. And I'm gonna right click on the subtractor and I'm going to hit reset the device. That's gonna just initialize everything. And we're gonna just draw in a very basic bass line here. It'll be a 4-bar loop. And it'll just be a actually, maybe we'll do the same notes from the song. Let's hear that. All right, cool. All right, and then so the way I created the wub 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 kind of effect is by going to the LFO. Where that LFO is being sent to is obviously important. So by default, you'll see it goes to oscillator 1 and 2. That's not where I want to send it. I want to send it to the filter frequency. So the LFO is going to affect this filter over here, filter 1. So again, if I have the filter open and then if I bring the filter down, here's the effect. Now I could just automate this knob going up and down, but instead of doing that, I'm gonna let the LFO do the work. So let's, I'm gonna turn the filter down some, and then let's try dialing in the LFO to see what the effect is. there's that wub, wub, wub going on. And then the other thing that I automated is the rate, meaning the speed of the LFO signal, which is causing the filter to go up and down. So let's try playing around with that parameter. So really easy. Now we'll just we'll right click on that knob. We'll hit Edit Automation. Here on our sequencer page now, we have LFO rate. Let me zoom in on that so it's a little easier to see. So we're gonna draw on a blank automation lane. And then let's say we'll start it off at, by default, it's set to 52. So we'll start there. And then when it gets to bar 2, we're going to make it go a little, let's try that again. When it gets to bar 2, we're gonna make it go a little faster. When it gets to bar 3, it's gonna go even faster. Let's see, so bar 2 was set to 65. So we'll set this to 65, add another one, and then that'll go up. And then when it gets back to bar 4, let's see, 89. So we'll set that to 89. And then, yeah, so when it gets back to bar 4, it'll go back to where it was at 53 or 52. All right, so let's hear that. And I'm just randomly dialing these numbers. So let's hear what it sounds like. You can see the LFO knob jumping around here. And then also notice the relation with the filter here. If I move this filter around, that's going to also change the effect. Of course, you can play with the resonance as well. And then, of course, all of this is automatable. So, for example, you could have the resonance starting at 0, right-click on it, hit Automate, and draw a little automation lane. And then let's just say in the middle of this song, or in the middle of the bar, the resonance is going to jump up, and then it'll jump back down again. That didn't have much of an effect. Let's try turning it up. So there you go. So you really just want to play around with those settings. It's really just something to explore and mess around with. Okay, cool. So jumping back here to Chemical Cut, that was the Subtractor. And then we got the TB303. I don't really want to get into this one. I feel like showing you how to use the TB303 is a whole tutorial in its own. But I'll basically just say that I created 2 patterns. And as you can see, I have this knob here is automated. You'll see it starts in off mode, and then when the right time in the song comes up, it will automatically switch to the proper pattern. So here's how that looks. So that's the Subtractor. And then if people do want me to give more of a demo on how to use the Reason TB303 rack extension, I'm happy to do so. But mainly what I wanted to talk about today was the techniques that I employed using the Dr. Octo Rex and the Subtractor. The other tracks in the song, I'm using this choir pad. It literally only shows up these 2 times, or yeah, it's this one right here. So that plays like twice. That's it. It's just the... That's it. Not a whole lot to that. So here in the sample section, here's one sample. It's a gong that I have playing here in the grain sampler, and that just has a cool effect. So it sounds like this. So there's that. And then here on the mimic, you can hear what that sample sounds like. That's it. It's just this crescendo sound that's used to transition to the next scene. So when you put them together, sounds like... That's really it. That's the main things that I wanted to show you with this track. I just started off with just some fun experimentation, just very lighthearted, just kind of playing with some new techniques, exploring some old techniques that I've used in the past, and just letting myself have fun and see where the song took me. If there's something within this that I didn't cover that you'd like to know more about, just drop me a comment, let me know what you think of the song, and I will see you guys around in the next one.